Hey everyone, it's Corinne back with another Dear Corinne letter. This one has to do with family expectations and boundaries regarding holidays and things like that, right in time for the holiday season. So I'll just jump right into the letter, and it goes like this. Dear Corinne, I'm writing this letter to ask for your advice on a situation that is ongoing with my mother and my mother-in-law. As background, I'm an only child, and my mother has always been very possessive of me and my time. She calls me every day to ask what I'm cooking for dinner, what did I do all day, why don't I call her more often, etc., etc. Every year there is a struggle trying to decide where my husband and I and our kids will spend major holidays, with Christmas being the worst battle. Because our parents live in different states, we can't divide Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Easter also becomes a problem if the kids' spring break happens to start or end with Easter Sunday. Fortunately, the break is always the last week of March. So some years it doesn't coincide with Easter. My mother has made it very clear that the wife's family must take priority over Christmas, and my husband's mother feels that her son should spend all Christmas holidays with her. Both of our fathers like to have us there, but mine understands the need for our kids to have contact with their cousins and other grandparents. However, my father-in-law has Parkinson's disease and tires easily of the noise, and quite frankly would prefer that we visit in the summer, when the kids can be outside more often. I overheard an unfortunate shouting match between him and my mother-in-law one year over that very thing, with my mother-in-law doing most of the shouting. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law's hobby is ceramics, and her living room is full of objects from her classes, and she refuses to move them when we come with the kids. Her rationale is that kids should be taught not to touch things that aren't theirs. Yep, teach that to active toddlers. I should add that their house is in the Midwest, has no family room or play place because the basement is not heated. This puts a tremendous amount of pressure on me to keep the kids from touching them, because my husband is usually either helping his dad with projects he can no longer do because of the Parkinson's, or playing cribbage with him. With playing outside not an option in the northern Midwest, most of the time these holiday visits are becoming a nightmare. Any inspiration you can share will be greatly appreciated. Sincerely, Liz Taylor. Okay, so first of all, this week I'm just going to talk about expectations, because there's two different ways that I want to come at this. One is expectations and the other is boundaries, and we'll talk about boundaries next week. So I think we each need to decide and just what would happen if you decided what was most important to you. Ask yourself, what is most important to me regarding our family vacations? What do we want to have happen? What am I in control of? And what am I willing to say to family members in order to solve problems if we want different things? You cannot be in two places at once. Your husband's mother wants you there, and your mother wants you with her. So obviously you have to make a choice. So you know that she expects this, but are you going to meet that expectation? Are you going to allow, the two families to control you, or are you going to be the one in control? And this kind of has to do with boundaries, which we'll talk about next week. But when you go to the home, what is it that you're expecting? What do you expect to happen with the children, with your mother-in-law, even with your mother? This is common, by the way. We all have situations where our parents want one thing and our in-laws want something else. And as a mother-in-law, I've seen this happen in my own life, where I wanted things to happen a certain way. I expected it, and it didn't happen that way. And so am I going to just, back off and let the other side have her way, basically? Am I going to put up a fight? Am I going to, you kind of have to decide what battle you want to fight. So with my situation, I just decided that we would celebrate it on a different day. So we've decided to celebrate Christmas, on a different week or a different day. Because it doesn't necessarily have to be Christmas Eve, which is what I had expected. I expected the family to all be together for Christmas Eve. Well, so did my children's families. They also expected that. So, I guess I chose to be accommodating to the other side rather than have my in-laws feel sad, that they wanted to be with their families on Christmas Eve. So, so then we just celebrated on a different day. But that might not work for you. I have another friend who she takes her family away on Christmas holidays because the mother of her son's wife would show up at their family parties, just like show up at their door, and so she felt like that was sort of encroaching on her time with her son and her daughter-in-law. So they would just go on family trips away from their hometown because they were both from the same hometown. So that was her solution. So what do you expect will happen? And sometimes it's going to require a conversation that's difficult. And if you can use an IFAB, like I feel about because, I was expecting this to happen and I was really hoping this would happen. And then you have to have a conversation that can be painful and awkward, one that it could potentially hurt feelings. For example, when you go to your mother-in-law's and she has her ceramics out, what would happen if you decided not to hold your children back, just let them play as children do, and if something gets broken, which it probably will with young children, how is your mother-in-law going to respond, and how will you respond to her response and her reaction? What are you expecting from her, and what are you expecting from your own children and your own family? And maybe what would happen if you came up with a creative solution of maybe meeting somewhere else as a family, not even at their home, but at a separate location. Or if you kind of brainstormed, I wonder what would happen if you brainstormed together ideas that would make it more comfortable for everyone, and just changed your expectations a little bit. Sometimes that has to happen, like changing our expectations, that can be really helpful in the situation. But what can sometimes happen is hurt feelings, like we'll shove it down, that we're feeling resentful about that, we're feeling manipulated, or like the mother-in-law or the mother is telling us how we need to do things. And that can feel really unfair. And so I think it's very important to say what we expect, to share our expectations. We expect to have a wonderful holiday together with you, and we expect our children to enjoy themselves and not feel like they have to be walking on eggshells or being so careful around the ceramics, or children need to be able to run and play. Where would you like them to do that? Where can my children be children? And so kind of working together to find a solution to that. As far as your mother goes, what do you expect her to do? And what are you hoping that she will do as far as calling you? Would it be acceptable for her to call you once a week or once a month, or what would work the best for you? And then just say, I expect you to call me this often, and does that work for you? Because I do want to stay connected with you, I care about you, but when you call me every day, it feels like you're checking up on me, or you're judging me, or just share how you're feeling. I wonder what would happen if you just said, when you call me every day, I feel like you're controlling me, or something like that. Just try to express your feelings without being offensive, which can be really tricky sometimes. And then, maybe imagine a holiday where things happen the way that you want them to. Try to visualize how you want the holiday to go, both for yourself, your children, and your mother and your mother-in-law, and see if you can change your expectations a little bit, and to something that will be mutually satisfying. And sometimes that means a compromise, and whether you're going to be the one to make a compromise, or your mother-in-law or your mother, or maybe both, are going to have to compromise a little bit to make the situation better. Next week we'll talk about boundaries, setting boundaries, and how that can kind of have it can be a two-edged sword. There's benefits to setting boundaries, but there are also, consequences to setting boundaries. So we'll talk about that next week. But thank you so much for writing. And this is it can be a very painful topic, the holidays and in-laws and all of that. And we can get our feelings, hurt. We can allow ourselves to feel hurt when things don't go as we expect them to. I want to share an example of that where I had expected a certain kind of behavior from my in-laws, and when that didn't happen, I was really disappointed. And so I'm one who I can't really hide how I'm feeling, and so it was difficult to get over that. But then once I was able to accept the other person's behavior the way that they were going to behave, then I could love them better, and I wasn't so disappointed. And so I think I'm not saying to lower your expectations to not expect anything good, but just to change them a little bit, to kind of look outside the box, think outside the box, and how could this work for both of us? How can it be a holiday where we both are enjoying ourselves and the kids are having fun, and we look forward to coming back again, and just get as creative as you can and try to think of ways that can happen, and hopefully each holiday it gets better and better, and that you really enjoy your time together. Thank you so much for writing in. Next week we'll talk about boundaries, so have a great night.